I'm going to start this video by patting myself on the back a little bit for a prediction I made almost a year ago that came true at the Oscars this past weekend. Soon after seeing Top Gun Maverick, on May 30th, I predicted that it would win the Oscar for Best Sound Editing. And I was right. It won Best Sound. So even though that prediction may have been pretty predictable, I'm still pretty proud of myself for it. Hello, YouTube. Joe Kiger here, and with the Oscars taking place recently, let's talk about some of the nominees and winners from the night. For this video, I'm going to be ranking each movie from 2022 that was either nominated or won an Oscar. Normally, I don't see too many Oscar-nominated movies, so by the time the awards come around, I don't really care and haven't really seen any of the movies that have come out. But this year, I saw 8 different Oscar-nominated movies, and I figured that was enough to justify me talking about them. I also felt like this would give me the opportunity to talk about some of the movies from 2022 that I haven't discussed yet on this channel and react to the awards that they either won or did not win. With that said, let's get into it with my least favorite movie from 2022 that was nominated for an Oscar, and strap in for some controversial takes. The lowest spot on this list is held by one of the most divisive films of the year that was famous for being like the biggest flop ever, Babylon. There were some great elements to this film as far as like technical filmmaking goes, with editing and different shots and things, but I also had some issues as far as narrative went. I had trouble investing in the characters, and I also felt that this movie dragged a lot with the plot. I'll also admit that it's personally just not my liking of a movie. It was just very loud and grandiose and a little bit too over the top for me. So while I recognize that it had a lot of great elements to it on the technical side, I really wasn't that intrigued with the story or the characters. So with that said, Babylon is my least favorite Oscar-nominated movie from 2022. With similar problems dealing with the plot feeling too slow and me lacking a connection to the characters, The Fablemans is taking the number 7 spot on this list. Although I did not dislike The Fablemans as much as I did Babylon, I still was generally bored by it and had trouble investing myself into the story. I thought Sam Fableman was a decent protagonist, but I also couldn't relate to him a whole lot and didn't feel much of a connection or empathy for any of the other characters in the movie. But like Babylon, I realized that this movie was crafted very well. With Justin Hurwitz directing Babylon and Steven Spielberg directing The Fablemans, they're obviously both masters at work, and everything looks gorgeous, and they have really good instincts when it comes to direction. However, I just generally felt really neutral about The Fablemans because I care more about the narrative than the technical elements. So I was left just feeling kind of meh with The Fablemans, and that's why it's so low on this list. Glass Onion takes the number 6 spot on this ranking as we move from movies that I didn't really like a whole lot to movies that I have very mixed feelings about. On one hand, with Glass Onion, I really loved the mystery and thought it was compelling and engaging to watch. And I also really loved Janelle Monáe's character. I thought she was very charismatic and delivered a really good performance, along with most of the rest of the cast in the movie. However, on the other hand, I also had a few issues with the movie that were really glaring to me. I was really annoyed by 90% of the characters in the movie. And I know that's kind of what they wanted you to feel, but that just disrupts my viewing experience and makes it hard for me to really enjoy watching the movie. So I didn't like the characters. I also felt the storytelling was a little bit jumbled in places, and things just kind of didn't match up as far as storyline goes. And on top of that, I didn't like the humor a whole lot. I didn't think it was that funny of a movie and couldn't get behind some of the jokes. All of these problems added up a lot in the movie for me, and by the end, I just was kind of disappointed and didn't feel super satisfied by the conclusion the characters met. The movie taking the number 5 spot is sure to trigger some people, so just bear with me. The film I picked for my 5th favorite Oscar-nominated movie of 2022 is The Batman. Now, I know a lot of people loved this movie, and I understand why they loved it. I will admit that I think this movie achieved what it wanted to perfectly. It was the most grounded take we've gotten on Batman. It did such a good job of establishing this new universe. The mystery was engaging. Michael Giacchino's score for the film was the best work he's done in years, in my opinion. And I think it was the coolest depiction of Batman we've ever seen, as far as Batman actually being Batman in the suit and doing Batman things. I adored the first 10 minutes of this film and think it's some of the best depiction of Batman we've ever seen, ever. But along with all of these things that I think the movie did right, I also had a ton of gripes with it that weighed heavily on my evaluation of the film. The biggest problems for me was that I didn't like this version of Bruce Wayne or the Riddler, which is our two main characters, the main hero and the main villain. I didn't like that Bruce was emotionally cut off from everyone and antisocial and moody and goth for most of the film, even though I understand why they did that approach. And I also did not like Paul Dano's performance as the Riddler. The Riddler was just so weird. I didn't like his engagement with Twitter and streaming stuff. And again, it made sense in the universe and the direction they went with, but it really didn't suit my taste at all. And I had a hard time believing Paul Dano in this role with some of his more loud and risky acting decisions, maybe. But while I think it was a really cool take on the Batman, as far as Batman being Batman in the Batman suit, I got really bored with the movie, didn't really like some of the main characters, and just felt like the movie was way too long overall. My opinion of the number 4 spot on this list changed drastically from my initial viewing to then my later reflection on the film. And this movie is The Whale. Upon initial viewing, I loved the movie and was really moved by the story that it shared. I think any movie that moves me or inspires me in some way deserves a lot of praise, and The Whale definitely achieved that. However, I started to realize more flaws I had with the movie upon reflection. So for example, it shared an interesting message about being honest and authentic regardless of the consequence. And during the movie I was like, yeah, that's a great message to share. I fully support that. But then as I reconsidered the practicality of it, as far as the students that the Whale was teaching and their assignments in school and all that, I was like, that doesn't really apply all the time. You can't be 100% honest all the time. And so that kind of changed my opinion a little bit. Another thing I thought about after reflecting on the movie was Sadie Sink's character was kind of one-dimensional in the movie. Although the story pushed her in an interesting direction as far as her character and her true motivations, we didn't really get to see the nuances to her character in Sadie's depiction. They say things about her character that reveal her true nature towards the end, but I personally felt like we didn't get to see the complexities of her character in that way in Sadie's actual performance, because most of the time when she's on screen, we just get the annoying, bratty, flat jerk teenager who's better than everyone else. So I wish we would have got to see the more nuanced aspect of her character in her performance. Another problem I had with the movie is that it went really heavy on agenda pushing, and in this bashed really hard a group of people. And whether or not you think this group of people deserves to be bashed, I think it's fair to say that it went a little bit excessive in the movie, and it got on my nerves a little bit, so I didn't really appreciate that aspect of the film. But despite my complaints, I still had a really great time with this movie, was very moved by the ending and really loved the conclusion. And I also wholeheartedly support Brendan Fraser winning the Best Actor award at the Oscars for his terrific performance. Kicking off the top 3 Oscar-nominated movies of 2022 with the movies that I thoroughly enjoyed is everyone's favorite movie of the year, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. After hearing so many high praises about this movie, I had to check it out, and I was not disappointed at all. It was visually stunning, it was funny, it was heartwarming, and deeply mature, which really surprised me. I was thoroughly entertained with the movie from start to finish, and even felt touched in certain moments where the message that it's never too late to take life for granted and turn yourself around was driven home. So I honestly have no complaints with the movie, but I do have a complaint with the Academy for not giving it Best Animated Feature Film of the Year, and I will be mad about that for a long time. In contrast to Puss in Boots, which did not win the single award it should have won, my pick for number 2 won every award that it should have at the Oscars and then some. My second favorite movie from 2022 that either won or was nominated for an award at the Oscars is Everything Everywhere All at Once. This movie, similar to Puss in Boots, hit every mark that I want in a film. It was funny, fast-paced, had great characters, really strong writing, and a very well-delivered theme about being content with life that truly made me sit back and check myself. Not to mention the outstanding effects, cinematography, direction, costume design, set design, performances, and just genius use of creativity all around that was littered throughout the movie. This movie was just truly impressive in all aspects, and I think it deserved every single Oscar that it won, except maybe one with Jamie Lee Curtis winning Best Supporting Actress. While I think she played her character perfectly and did a really good job with it, I just had a feeling that surely someone else had a more powerful or complex performance that was more worthy of the Oscar. But that's just a tiny little complaint I have, not even about the movie, but about an award. So overall, Everything Everywhere All at Once was phenomenal. While I did love Everything Everywhere All at Once and Puss in Boots, there's one movie that shined just a little bit brighter for me than those two and left a more lasting impression on me. And my favorite movie from the Oscar-nominated films of 2022 is Top Gun Maverick. I believe that this is the best film to be released in the last 3 years, and despite me not even having seen the first Top Gun, this movie really drew me in and made me feel so attached to characters that I knew nothing about. Maverick had such a compelling arc that strongly resonated with me, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching his relationships with Rooster and Penny unfold throughout the movie. In the end, it was such a pleasant story of triumph and growth that just made me feel really good, and also left me awestruck at some points with how fantastic the aerial sequences were in the movie. In a lot of cases, my favorite movies tend to be those that I go into with either low or neutral expectations, and this was certainly the case for Top Gun Maverick, as I went into it with pretty low expectations and it just blew me out of the water. It was also the only movie that I felt compelled enough by to do a proper review on in my channel. So if you want to hear me talk about more of the things that I love about Top Gun Maverick and go more in depth with it, I suggest you find that review and check it out. That does it, people. That is my ranking of all the 2022 Oscar-nominated films that I saw. I hope you all enjoyed the video. What did you guys think of the Oscars this year? What do you think of my ranking of these movies? And how would you rearrange the movies? Please let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your all's opinions. And most importantly, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate your views, likes, comments, and subscriptions, so thank you guys. Also, leave some ideas for future videos you want me to tackle. I'll see you in the next one.